Now I want to ask Dr. Pethel to come up and talk about a program that we are replicating through Race to the Top. It's one of our, a separate Race to the Top project, separate from the Innovation Fund, but it's Gwinnett's Quality Plus Leader Preparation Program, and we're replicating that to different systems around Georgia through Race to the Top. So he's going to give a presentation on that because that's applicable to the replication door that we're opening in the second round of the RFP.
Okay. If you believe the notion that a picture is worth 1,000 words, this picture tells a lot. One thing that I hope that you see is that we have been about the study of school leadership and school leaders, specifically principals. What impact do principals have on schools? And are there things, professional development, learning, support activities, that may have a significant difference? In other words, can we do something to make principals even more effective in terms of student? And so you see our logo in the upper left-hand corner, and that's the umbrella that we use, and it is the Quality Plus Leader Academy, and it means something to us in Gwinnett. One of the lessons I think that I've learned over the past several years is that whatever you're doing, you need to adapt and you need to make it your own. We all know about different programs that are available to us, things available for purchase, and there are things that we can learn from those. But one of the lessons I believe that we've learned is that whatever you're doing is you need to make it your own. To address what are some of the strategies that we've learned and used, and what are some of the lessons that we've learned over a several year period, I'll try to use some pictures to illustrate those lessons. And the first lesson is that whatever you're doing really needs to have a foundation. In other words, it needs to have some research. There's some reason that says perhaps there's a reason, as the governor said this morning, that we want to look over the horizon, or perhaps to look over the mountain. And in this case, you see a couple of illustrations of research and authors who say that school leadership is really important. And so we pose some questions. Do school leaders have a positive impact on kids? And what are those leader behaviors that are most related and have a positive impact on student achievement? And then finally, we're doing lots of things, but how are we evaluating the impact of all of those things that we're doing? So a lesson that we learned here is that it's really important to know where you want to go. Now that probably sounds too simple, but you really ought to know where you want to go. And if you have a pretty good idea of where you want to go, then you can begin to map out the strategies for assessing and monitoring your progress toward that end goal. So we believe that knowing your vision, your mission, and having a degree of clarity and precision with that, making sure you understand your goals and what those are, and as Joe and others pointed out to us today, making sure that you're not trying to cover the entire waterfront with those, that you're fairly few in number, but that they are very specific and that you can communicate those. Again, all of you probably know this. There's been a great deal of research, especially in the past 10-year period, and we've drawn heavily on that research, particularly out of the Wallace-funded research from the universities of Minnesota and Toronto that says leadership, sure enough, really is important. And for those of us who have been school leaders, that's kind of reassuring to know that we do have a place in this world, right? And they said to us that leadership is really important where the need exists the most. So for those of us who may have had some responsibility for turnaround school situations, again, that's reassuring to know that perhaps the leader of that school, whether it's charter or private, it doesn't matter, but that leader is critically important, second only to teachers. Again, I use this as a picture to illustrate the strategy and the lesson that we've learned. You really need to understand the foundation that supports your proposal or what you're attempting to do. Another picture, we've all fairly familiar with this, the Mazzarno, Tim Waters' work out of McRail, that School Leadership Works, and some of the findings out of that, again, helped us understand the foundation of what we're doing. More recently, Dr. James Strong and colleagues, the qualities of effective principals. For some of you who are involved in the teacher effectiveness measure and leader effectiveness measure will relate to this body of work. Again, it helped us to understand how important it was to not only understand perhaps the research foundation, but then to begin to understand the practical application. So if the research says leaders important, then what do effective leaders look like? And Dr. Strong and others help us to understand that there are some qualities that can be identified. Some of us remember very well the work of Peter Drucker, who reminded us that management is about doing things right, but leadership is about doing the right things. And I will tell you this, again, this is a lesson that we've learned, is paying attention to make sure you're doing the right thing. And with all of the things that we could be doing, all the things that might be exciting and appealing to us, it's really important to come back to that and make sure that we're doing the right thing. The Department of Ed, U.S. Department of Ed, in one of the Federal Register announcements on school leadership grants, said that principals are the major driver of school improvement and school quality. We now know that if you want to retain teachers, don't pay them more money, put an effective principal in place. Teachers are more interested in the quality of the principal that is leading the school than they are in all other things. Now that sort of makes sense, particularly with what we know about in the private sector with employee engagement. Guess what? If you've got a great principal in place, people like working. People want to come to work every day. So that's a good thing for kids. Again, trying to illustrate some of the things that we've learned over time is that leadership and teaching and adult action do matters, and that leadership is a complex topic. And so there's not a single skill set nor a solitary activity. So again, that helped us put on the practitioner hat, again, which is a lesson I think that we've learned over time, to always keep the practitioner in mind. So the direction is clear, isn't it? And the point I'm illustrating here is we have a number of things, a number of works that describe what leaders should know and do, such as the ISLIC standards. The National Board for Professional Teaching Standards is developing those on leader. Our own Georgia Leadership Institute for School Improvement, national organizations, things like Rainwater Leadership Alliance. So it should be very clear what leaders should know and do, right? The answer is maybe not. And it's not so clear. So as a very famous leadership author tells us, historically there's been little research to indicate that leadership development, and so for all of us who've been in leadership development, what a disappointment this statement is, that leadership development has made a positive long-term difference. There's no research on that, and there's almost no documentation that leaders have changed because of meetings and professional learning activities that they participated in. That's disheartening, right? But again, it tells us that this is an area for innovation. And so perhaps we can learn from the practices of the past and do something differently. And so a few years ago, Broad Foundation began funding leader training, leader preparation programs, but for a specific reason. They wanted to know, so what? If you do all of these things, will it make a difference with kids? And guess what? we were fortunate enough to get one of their grants. And I was happy, and my superintendent was happy. And along the way, Broad began to evaluate us. Every year we had a dashboard, and we had an evaluation matrix that was applied. And after 3 years and 9 grants by the Broad Foundation, there was only 1 grant that showed any effect on student achievement. Now, I'm pleased to tell you that that was our grant. But the reason that I think that's important is that these other grantees have not helped us. And why did we stand out among those grants? And here you see the overall evaluation. Our program was rated 100% in the performance indicators, and that's really, really good. But the lesson I learned, and the lesson that we've learned over time, is that fidelity, execution, and implementation are incredibly important. In other words, if a funder or if a partner is expecting you to do something, you know, it's like any relationship in life. And you've got a partner who may have come to believe to expect certain things from you. It's really important to deliver on that. And if you're not able to, like, for example, if I can't get home when I tell my wife I'm going to, and I've been married 41 years, it's still important for me to call her and tell her that, because she expects that of me. So with the Broad Foundation, we learned if we were not going to meet certain performance indicators, we learned, because we had developed that relationship, Joe, you and others talked about this morning, we learned that we needed to have a conversation with them and really talk about, you know, we're struggling, we can't do this. So again, I hope that picture has a little bit of a story behind it. So here we are, we're bombarded with all of these multiple theories of leadership and management, and school principals will likely experience a significant amount of role conflict and role overload. How many of you are principals in the room? A couple of you, more, yeah, 2 or 3. You ever feel that way, a little bit overload? I know that we have 133 principals in our district, and they experience that, role conflict and role overload. Here, again, just very quickly, a clear results-based definition of leadership, broadly acceptable and stable over time, is the foundation of leadership performance improvements. And the author of this book says, but you know what? Unfortunately, those definitions are rare. And so along the way, the lesson we learned is we need to define leadership. And again, that may sound so simple as to go, no, we know what leadership is all about, don't we? Or do we? And I think what we discovered is perhaps we don't have a very good understanding of that. Continuing on, I heard this over and over again this morning. One of the lessons we've learned is avoid fragmented strategies. And we often say this in our district, Joe. We avoid book of the month and we avoid flavor of the week. And some of my colleagues from North Georgia County said to me today, you kind of go your own way, don't you? And I don't know if we do or not, quite frankly, but I do know one of the lessons that we've learned is that the way we go has to be our way. It has to be our way. It's not somebody else's way. Otherwise, our heart is not in the way we're going. For example, if you told me we were going to take a trip somewhere, Jack, and maybe I didn't want to go where you said we were going to go, I'm not going to be an enthusiastic traveler with you. And even if you arrive at the place you had designated and you're kind of happy you got there, again, I'm perhaps a little lackluster in my interest or my excitement. So again, you need to make the way you go your own. I will tell you that one of the lessons we've learned, and we are partnering with our good friends in Gainesville City Schools, Hall County Schools, Muskogee County Schools, and White County Schools. And one of the things as we've talked with our good friends in these districts is take whatever we've learned and use it and adapt it and copy it and put your name on it or put somebody else's name on it, whatever you want to do with it. And as I talked to Ginger a few weeks ago, I hope I made the point that it behooves all of us that we have great leaders in Columbus, Georgia. And so if there are some lessons that we've learned or practices perhaps that we've perfected that they can adapt and make their own and make it a part of their way in Columbus, Georgia, then it behooves all of us, because the more effective the leader is in a school in Columbus, Georgia, the greater the likelihood they're going to have a positive impact on kids, and those kids are citizens of the state of Georgia, and guess what? They are citizens of the world. And those global citizens one day will make our life and the life of those generations that follow so much better. So that's my story about sticking to your way and avoiding things that sometimes become very tempting to us. Again, I'm going to jump over a few of these in the sake of time. One of the things that I saw lots of conceptual models. It's kind of like I saw lots of maps, Jack, and so somewhere along the way we had to create our own map. And this is our version of a map. This is our leadership development model. And it starts with a strategic direction, and we get that from a lot of places, including our CEO, superintendent. But ultimately it comes down and we define finally the programs, the processes, the strategies that we will employ to get at principals having a positive impact on kids. The context for our model, we wanted unity of purpose, that training and development is visible and it is important, and we will show that it can make a difference if we monitor it and we measure it and we modify it. It depicts a learning organization. We hope it's logically consistent, at least it was to us, that there is lucidity and there is reason. In other words, it makes sense. And finally, if somebody else wanted to look at it, that perhaps it would be easy to understand. A couple of years ago, I began to understand the importance, perhaps more clearly than ever in my career, of understanding why your final destination was important to understand. And the use of a logic model has helped me understand that more than anything else. And I would highly recommend this. This is one of the lessons I've learned. I would highly recommend you think about a logic model. So we do lots of things with this program that we're wanting to scale up, that we're wanting to sustain over time. But all of that is just nice conversation if it doesn't have an impact on kids. And so this logic model, you can go through it and you can look at inputs and outputs. You can look at short-term and medium-term objectives. But the thing that's most important about this is there is a long-term objective. And the long-term objective of everything that we're doing is that the measures of student achievement will show statistically significant improvement. So we have a good time and everybody enjoyed lunch and there was a good variety of sandwiches, but so what? And so ultimately the lesson that I've learned is that you need to think about scale. And so I'm going to quickly conclude with this. Scale, and this is adapted from the Wallace Foundation. In our case, it means spread. Where are we trying to spread what we've learned? And I mentioned our colleague partner school districts. And the reason we chose those partner districts is because of some of the things that we heard Penny and Joe talk about this morning. Guess what? They were interested in the same things we are. Mary Ann and Ginger and Will Schofield are really interested in the quality of leaders they have in their school district. That's nice. So we found some commonality. Depth. The model incorporates effective practices. I hope I've demonstrated some of that to you and how we continue to look for those effective practices. That it is sustainable, that we have policies and an infrastructure in place to support further improvements, especially through Race to the Top, and that there is a shift in ownership. one day, whatever Muskogee County Schools wants to call theirs, and I like what they actually call their academy now, their Lighthouse Leadership Academy. Whatever Dr. Dyer decides that if she wants to coin something, a term in Gainesville, that's wonderful. So again, so that we can shift that. And then the scale-up process is that it'll be interactive, it'll involve the districts, and that's especially true. Alvin Wilbanks, our CEO, Dr. Dyer, Susan Andrews, Will Schofield, Paul Shaw up until recently in White County, again, are all appreciative, I believe, Mary Ann, of one another's skills and talents and abilities. And again, so it's nice to find partners like that. That in the scale up, it'll be adaptive through these reciprocal relationships, that it'll be continuously re-examined with adjustments as needed, and that it'll be non-linear and customized to fit the school district needs. So let me summarize very quickly and let that be my last slide. Here are some of the things I heard. Clarity and precision is important. Communication is important. Coherence, it's logical, it makes common sense. And in my estimation, that it be void of jargon. That marketing and branding, and that's not a bad thing, it's not a bad connotation, but that you make it yours, that it be your program, that it be our program, and that it not be seen as a fragmented tack on, oh, they went to a conference and they brought one more thing back with them, and here we go. And that success breeds success. And so you've got to establish early wins, and that goes back again, Joe, to what you said. Make sure you're biting off just the right amounts so that you can digest those and digest those successfully. So again, I really appreciated what I heard this morning. If you want to go quick, go alone. The path that we've taken is we want to go far and we want to go together. So, thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. That is a great example of a successful replication, and hopefully y'all can take that back and it can be applicable in other settings as well.